I've come to the conclusion that in life, most people are driven by emotion. Maybe you've noticed this. Most people, if you ask them what are they thinking or what's happening in their life, they'll tell you how they feel. We use this all of the time. We say, well, I feel like this, or I feel like that. You're asked a question, you say, well, I feel, and it always comes back to how we feel. You like that? It's all about emotion. We live in a world that is crazy. It's crazy. Now, not always bad crazy, but certainly not always good crazy, but it's always crazy. Things are always spinning. The stories are always being thrown at us, whether it's through the news or social media or just in your own home. I've got kids in my home. There's things happening all of the time. Today, when I go home, I'll walk through the door. I'll get approximately 1 foot inside of my doorway before I am assaulted with stories from the day, and I just have to deal with it. This is our lives all of the time in the United States of America. Constantly, things are being thrown at us. And most people, when those things are being thrown at them, they respond to them emotionally. I'm thankful for emotions. I'm thankful for the fact that we have those. It makes life what it is, I guess, and in many ways it can be wonderful. But it can also be extremely damaging. You see, when people are being guided by emotions, when they're simply responding to what's happening to them, they often respond in ways that they later regret. Emotion can be good, but it happens fast. And if we respond based on the first thing that comes into our hearts and minds, sometimes we're not always clear on why we did it, and we're digging ourselves out of a hole that we never should have been in the first place. We respond emotionally. I try in my life to very intentionally, before I respond emotionally, to gain an appropriate perspective on what's happening. That's why this moment that we share together is called the perspective. I do my best to view life with a proper perspective. You see, when you are looking at things clearly, you typically will respond in a much better way than you will when you just are driven by your emotion. You know what I mean. You felt this. When you have the opportunity to get some distance between you and whatever's happening, you tend to do better in your response. In perspectives, I try to weigh what's right and what's wrong. I try to weigh what is true and what is not true. In all of this, I've come to the conclusion that most people, when they're not responding emotionally, they're responding with the firm belief that only one thing can be true at one time. Please hear me out here. When people are not responding emotionally, that is, they're not just responding based on how they feel the instant they receive information. If they're not responding emotionally, their perspective, generally speaking, is that only one thing can be true at one time. This can be perhaps more damaging than responding emotionally. We're living in a world where we are constantly being put on sides. We live in a politically charged world. We live in a world that says you are either right or you are left. You're either over here or you're over there. You believe this thing or you believe that thing. And it's not just in politics, in religion, in theology. We're told you have to believe this or else you must believe that. You have to do this or else you must do that. And we're constantly being told that you're in one camp or the other, on one side or the other, that only one thing can be true at one time. Now, truth in the universal sense is absolute. God is truth. There is only one truth. That is God's truth. But there are other things that can be true both at the same time. Things can be good here while being bad there. Here's a great example. We're living through this example right now. We're in a moment where we're being told that as human beings living in the United States, you either need to be concerned about your health and the health of others, or you need to be concerned about the economic welfare of your family and your country. This is crazy. There is this pandemic globally. Hundreds of thousands of people being impacted by this. around the world, we don't know what the actual number is or what the actual final toll will be. We have no idea. But in all of it, we're being told that you either care about health or economics. This is a great example, and just one example of many, but a great example that we're all living through right now, that two things can be true at the same time. You know, it's possible to be concerned about the health impact of a global pandemic while also being concerned about the economic impact of a global pandemic. It is possible to believe that there are some really difficult health concerns happening. That's true. People are being impacted by something physically. That's true. But that also the economy of the United States and the economy of the world are being impacted at the same time. Both things can be true at the same time. It's possible in life to believe that more than one thing can be true in the same space. If we would understand that, and if we would get a hold of that, it could change our perspective on a lot of things. It would perhaps make us less judgmental. It might make us less cynical. You know, that person that doesn't always treat you right. It's possible that they're having a bad day and also dealing with some things that you don't see. It's possible that they're being mean to you. That's true. It's possible that they're also struggling in a severe way at home. That could also be true. When we understand that more than one thing can be true at the same time, it gives us compassion, and it helps us to better sort through whatever issue, whatever situation we happen to be dealing with at this exact moment. The job of all of us is to take all of the things that are true and to triangulate to come up with a solution that addresses all of the truths at the same time. That person that's not being nice to you but is struggling at home. If we understand that there are two things true at the same time, we can say, look, it's not okay for you to act this way, and I want to help you deal with whatever the underlying issue is. You can deal with both truths at the same time. You can do this with your kids. You can do this with other people and other relationships. You can do this as you're living through a global pandemic. You can work to safely get the economy back on track while addressing the very real health concerns that so many people have. Two things can be true at the exact same time. Most people live emotionally. They respond emotionally, and they're an emotional wreck. They find themselves doing things they never thought they would do and trying to dig themselves out of a hole they shouldn't have been in the first place. Other people will step back and do their best to get a perspective. Those people typically have concluded that only one thing can be true at a time. They have to be on the left or the right. They have to be on this side or that side. They have to believe this thing or that thing. People that are gifted in the area of perspective and that make the best decisions for their lives and the lives of those that they impact are those that understand more than one thing can be true at the same time. Let's deal with all of those truths in the way that addresses each of them equally so that we can move forward holistically, helping as many people as possible. In your life, understand that when you're trying to gain perspective, two things can be true at the same time.